Welcome to week 13 of Operations Management course. So this is the agenda for this week. First, we will be doing a review of the last week's lecture, and we will be solving two questions during our Zoom meeting. After that, we will discuss about inventory management and we'll solve couple of questions in our Zoom meeting. A quick review of what we did in the last week. So last week we discussed about trend projection and linear regression. So trend projection refers to finding out a trend line for the data. So the trend line will be represented as y hat equal to a plus bx, where a and b are two different parameters which are estimated based on the data. B is given by this particular formula and a is estimated once b is found out using this particular formula. So please remember that we are discussing only about linear trend line. And the second thing we discussed last time was about the linear regression. So the linear regression calculation is exactly same as the trend projection calculation. So in linear regression, in addition to finding the equation of the regression line, we looked at two different aspects. One is called as the standard error of estimate, SYX, and the second thing is called as the correlation coefficient, R. So SYX and R represent the accuracy of the trend line, accuracy of the regression line we have estimated using this calculation. So always remember, if you get an R squared value greater than 0.8, that means the regression which you have found out is really good. If R square is between 0.6 and 0.8, that means the regression line is still okay but not so great. If R squared value is less than 0.6, that means you need to be careful while using that particular equation for making your predictions. So I'll be solving two questions using these two concepts in our Zoom meeting. So the focus of today's lecture is on inventory management. Inventory management. The purpose of inventory management is to reduce the investment for inventory, at the same time to ensure increased customer service. So it is a fine balance between these two different contradictory aspects. The most important reason for stressing inventory management is it is one of the most expensive assets of many of the companies. It can typically represent as high as say 50% of the total invested capital. So you need to be very careful while dealing with the inventory. Some of the key functions of inventory management or inventory are as follows. The first thing is to provide a stock of goods that will provide a selection for customers and provide the flexibility of the firm to adjust to fluctuations in demand. So what it means is it can take care of the fluctuations in the demand. So based on providing multiple options for the customers. If the demand is higher or lower, the fluctuation part of it could be adjusted by having a proper management of inventory. And the second reason why typically inventory comes into play is due to the advantage of quantity discounts. So what it means is, let's say that if I have to purchase a single, let's say I'm discussing about a laptop, and if I want to purchase a single laptop, let's say the cost is say $800 is what I am going to spend for a single laptop. But if I'm a store which holds say hundreds of laptops, then of the same variety, so I will not be spending $800 per laptop while buying. I will be getting a discount on buying bulk orders. So there is a tendency for the store to hold more to take advantage of this quantity discounts. The third aspect which we normally discuss is to hedge against inflation. What it means is, when the cost is lower, there is a tendency for companies to procure as much as they can, so that when the price increase happens, they don't really need to purchase at that particular point of time. So we can think of the oil prices now. They are really low compared to what it was say a couple of months back. So companies have this particular tendency to buy more and more when the prices are lower. Now, the different types of inventory. Please remember that you will get at least one question from the theory section, for the theory section, from these topics of inventory. So the different types of inventory are as follows: raw material, work in process, MRO or maintenance, repair and operating supplies, and the finished goods. These are the four different types of inventory which we normally discuss about. So as the name suggests, so the only thing which I want to discuss is about say MRO. The maintenance, repair and the operating supplies are, let's say, the spare motors or the spare machinery which you will be keeping inside your factory to make sure that your production is not getting affected. It's typically called as MRO. Work in progress or work in process typically refer to the materials on which you have already started acting upon that. So initially it was a raw material, you started acting upon that particular material, but the process is not yet complete, it's not yet become a finished good. So that's what is called as the work in process or work in progress. Now, the key questions in any inventory management context is the following: what are the types of inventory that I have, when to order, how much to order, and how to maintain control of inventory. So out of this, when to order and how much to order are very important questions which we will be solving. So these two things, when to order and how much to order, we'll be solving numerical questions to answer those two parts, those two key questions. Now, before going further, we need to look at the different costs associated with inventory. The first thing is the product cost. The product cost typically refers to the actual cost of the product multiplied by the quantity ordered. So let's say that the cost of one product is $10, and if we order for say 50 such pieces, so the total product cost will be 50 multiplied by 10, $500. That's the product cost. The second thing is the ordering cost, which is sometimes called as the setup cost. Refers to the cost of placing that particular order, cost of receiving that particular product. It can include the transportation cost. For example, if you are trying to, let's say that your factory is at Waterloo and your supplier is, say, at London, and if you want to procure a material from the supplier, you might like to go to the supplier, purchase that material and come back. So there's a cost that you need to spend for your transportation, typically referred to as the setup cost or the ordering cost. The third cost is called as the holding cost. Holding cost refers to the cost of carrying inventory over time. So this can represent, so for example, let's say I have the materials at my location. Now I need to store the material, so I need a space for holding that particular material. So the storage cost, the rent that I pay for that particular location, or the insurance which I need to take for the safety of the materials and so on, are typically put under the holding cost. So remember this thing, ordering cost and holding costs and the product cost are the three different costs which are involved in any inventory discussion. Now we normally do a method of classification called as ABC method. So this method is very effective for focusing on the inventory which we are having. So the class A refers to the high annual dollar volume, and class B refers to the medium annual dollar volume, and class C refers to the low annual dollar volume. So let me explain what is normally done. Let's say that you are spending $1 million each year on your inventory. So let's say that you are spending, let me use a blue colored pen here. So let's say that your total inventory is 1 million. And in 1 million, if you are trying to see the number of items which you are having, say that let's assume that you have 100 different products which constitute your inventory list, and those 100 products put together, you spend around $1 million each year. Now the class A might mean, let's say that out of those, if you're trying to arrange the data in the descending order, see what it means is the highest priced item might be kept at the top, the next highest priced item may be kept the second, and so on, just like the Pareto analysis which we did. So we can see that maybe like the top 5 items out of those 100 might account for, say, 60% of your total spending amount. So let's think of a factory. Those items could be, let's say, the motors or the raw materials or some specific raw materials which are used in the production and so on. They can fall under the class A. So class A are those items which are really expensive. Now class C refers to, or class B refers to the things which are not so expensive. So I said there are total 100 items in your thing. So first 5 items are really costly. When you arrange the data in the descending order, you find that the top 5 items are accounting for, say, 50% of your spending, and the next item, from the item 6 to the next, say, item number 30, the next 25 items might account for the remaining 40% of your spending. And so I said, so 5 items are for class A, 25 items are class B, and the remaining 70 items put together might account only for say 10% of your spending, so that will fall under class C. Now always the focus of the company has to be on the class A items, because class A items are very expensive. So the emphasis should always be on the supplier development for class A items, and due care has to be given while forecasting the class A items. If you are not doing it properly, you may end up spending really high on your inventory expenses. Now we will start with some numerical topic. So I said there are two different questions which we need to answer. The first question is, when should I order for my inventory, and how much should I order each time? And always remember that the focus is to minimize the total inventory cost. The inventory cost, as we have seen earlier, depends on the product cost, it depends on the holding cost, and it also depends on the ordering cost. Now there are three different models available, and the most important method is called as the basic economic order quantity, or EOQ, and EOQ. So we study only EOQ for your course, and that's the most commonly used method. So always remember the focus of this model is to tell you when should you place an order and how much should you place an order, and these two questions are ordered and answered in such a way that the total inventory cost is minimum. So let me take an example. When I show you an example, this concept will become very clear. Now the different assumptions which are involved in the EOQ model are shown here. So in EOQ, or economic order quantity model, the first assumption is that the demand is known and it is going to remain constant throughout the time frame which we are discussing, and it is not dependent on any other thing. So the first assumption is we know the demand clearly. The second thing is the lead time is known and it is also gonna be a constant. So the lead time is the time it takes for a material to come from the time you place the order. So for example, if I placed an order on Monday, if the lead time is 2 days, the material will come on Wednesday. So the lead time, and that lead time is going to remain constant, and the receipt of inventory is instantaneous and complete. So what it means is, let's say that I place an order for say 50 items on Monday. If the lead time is 2 days, on Wednesday I will get the full 50 items on Tuesday, and there is no issue at all. It's going to be an instantaneous thing. So whenever I need that particular material, I will get that immediately. So this is the third assumption. The next assumption is there is no quantity discounts in this process. So whether I order 50 items or I order say 100 items, I do not get any discount on the quantity. The different costs which we are considering here are the setup cost and the holding cost, and the stockouts can be completely avoided. So what it means is we are not considering a situation of stockouts. So now going forward, so let's see how to use this particular thing. I will be explaining this particular, or I will be using this particular graph to explain how to arrive at this particular model. Now let me go to that particular thing. So for example, let's look at this. So here Q represents the maximum inventory that can be kept inside the factory Q, and this is the zero inventory, that's the minimum inventory situation. So let's say Q equal to 100 units. Now x-axis is the time. So on day 0 or day 1 you have say 100 units. As the demand, as the number of days increases, say from the first day, second day, third day, and so on, as days go on this x-axis, there is a drop in the inventory level. So when the inventory level is dropping, so at some point you reach the zero inventory level. Now once you reach the zero inventory level, let's say that if you are placing an order and assume that, let's say so as a starting point, we will assume that the lead time is 0, that there is no lead time for getting the material. Let's say what means is, if I place the order at this particular point, I immediately get the full 100 units, and then I keep the material keeps on reducing, and at some point again it reaches 0. At that point I place an order and the process continues. Now this inclined line represents the usage rate. Usage rate represents how many items will be consumed over a particular period of time. And so this is looking like a triangle. So Q by 2 represents the average inventory on hand. Average inventory is the average of the maximum inventory and the minimum inventory. So Q plus 0 divided by 2 equal to Q by 2. Now let's see how things are going to look like. Now our focus is to reduce the total inventory cost. Now let me explain how the process works. So let's think of this case. Let's think of say Staples as an example, and it is holding notebooks. So assume that you have a demand. For instance, let's say that you know that in a year I will be able to sell 40,000 notebooks in a year. So one option is I can order all the 50,000 notebooks at the start of the year and then keep that particular thing with me and keep it with me for the first full 1 year, and as and when the demand arises I will be able to satisfy my demand because I am holding say 40,000 notebooks. So in such a situation, remember that my holding cost is going to be very high, because the quantity which I am having is so high that I need to have such a large space for holding 40,000 notebooks. Now this is the first option, but then in that particular case, that's what is this blue line representing. Now let's say that if I am, instead of 40,000, so if I have this 40,000, I need to have lots of space for holding, so my holding cost is high. But the thing is, I just place an order only once in a year, so I need to spend really less on my transportation for getting the material from my supplier, which is represented by this green line. So when the quantity is higher, my ordering cost is very less. or the transportation cost is very less. Now let's say, think of the other extreme. Instead of holding 40,000 notebooks, let's say that I hold only 400 notebooks, and every third day I am going to purchase, say, another 400 notebooks. So let's assume I have 400 today. The next day I will go and buy another 400, next third day. So the 3 days after that I will go and purchase another 400, and so on. In that case, so the quantity which I am holding is only 400 each time. So I will just use some numbers. I will just use a pen here. So let's say this is the case where if I am holding, say, 400 notebooks, let's say this is 400 notebooks. But this is the case where I am holding, say, for instance, 40,000 notebooks. This is the location where I'm holding, 40K. So 40,000 notebooks is what I am holding here. And this is the place where I am holding only 400. So my holding cost is going to be very, very less, because I just need to have a small space for holding 400 notebooks. But the thing is, I need to go every third day to my supplier to purchase it. As a result, my ordering cost is going to be very, very, very high when I am ordering, when I am doing this particular process. And that means at some point, there is some particular point. So if I'm trying to take the sum of my ordering cost and my holding cost, that's what this red line is representing, and there is some particular quantity, there is a particular quantity called as Q star, which is between, say, 400 here and 40,000. It's some particular quantity at which my total cost is going to reduce. And when I say the total cost is going to reduce, what I mean is the cost of the sum of my holding cost and the ordering cost is going to reduce at some particular point. So that point is called as my economic order quantity. So let me show what it means. So let's say that Q is the number of pieces that you order. So economic order quantity, EOQ, is that particular point at which the sum of the total cost, so the ordering cost plus the holding cost, the sum reaches the minimum. So it can be shown that, so let me explain how to think of this particular number. So let's say I have a demand, D stands for the demand, this S stands for the setup cost or the ordering cost, H represents the holding or carrying cost per unit per year. So in this particular situation, so the first thing is, what is the annual setup cost or annual ordering cost? So let's think of it. So if D is the demand, and so which is, say, I say 40,000 is my demand, and I am placing an order for, say, 100 or 400 notebooks each time. So that means in a year I have 40,000, but each time I am placing an order for only 400. That means D by Q represents the number of orders that I will be placing each year. So that is D by Q. Now when I multiply it by S, I say that's the total ordering cost. So the total ordering cost is the number of orders times the setup cost per order, so which is D by Q multiplied by S. Now let's come to the holding cost. So my order quantity is, Q is my order quantity, which is, say, 100, is my order quantity. But as we have seen in the previous case, it keeps on reducing and finally reaches a point called 0. So first what we'll be doing is an average inventory level. So the average inventory level will be Q divided by 2, Q divided by 2 multiplied by H. H is the holding cost per unit per year. So which is Q by 2 multiplied by H. So it can be shown that the total cost reaches a minimum value when these two numbers become the same. So what I mean is, if I try to equate D by Q multiplied by S is equated to Q by 2 multiplied by H, I get an equation that is the equation for economic order quantity. Economic order quantity equal to square root of 2ds by H. So please remember that this formula is very important for your examination. So this particular formula is very important for the exam. So you will be given the annual demand D, you will be given the ordering cost S, and you will also be given the holding cost per unit. Once you know these particular things, you can calculate the EOQ as follows. So let me take an example here. In this case, let's say the annual demand is 1,000 per year. The ordering cost is $10 per order, and the holding cost is 50 cents per unit per year. So if I want to calculate my economic order quantity, I just substitute it in this particular formula, and then I get Q star as 200 units. So Q star represents the number of items that I should order each time. Now the second question which I can answer is, once I have found out Q star, determine the expected number of orders per year. So since I know that my total demand is 1,000 and my Q star is 200, so 1,000 divided by 200 is 5. That will be the number of orders which I can expect each year. Now the third question which can come up is, determine the expected time between orders. So first thing which I found out is EOQ. Second thing is the number of orders each year. The third thing is, what's the time between two orders. So let's say that if 250 is the total working days in my company each year, and I place say 5 orders per year, in that particular case the expected time between two orders is 50 days. So I spend say 50 days between two orders, which is 250 divided by 5. Now the next thing is the total cost that I will be spending. Total cost is the sum of the ordering cost and my holding cost. If I use this, ordering cost was D by Q multiplied by S, and holding cost was Q by 2 plus H. If I use this formula, I will be getting the total cost, annual cost for this inventory is $100. So I'll be showing these things during our Zoom meeting. So we just finished. So the only thing is we finished how much to order. So I said there are two different key concepts: how much to order and when to order. So what we have just calculated using EOQ is how much to order each time. The next question is, when should I place my order? So the focus here is to when to place the order. So let's look at this particular same thing which we have seen. So every time I place an order for say Q star, when you place an order for Q star, so let's say in the previous case Q star was coming out to say 50 units, I think 50 units. So now the number keeps on reducing. So let's say that I have at the beginning I have say 50 units. As time progresses here, as there is, so on the day one I have 50 units, the next day due to the demand, let's say I have a demand for 5 units, so I will take 5 units from the 50 and it becomes 45, and so on. It keeps on reducing. So in the previous case what we were looking at is I'll be placing my order when it reaches 0, but which is not very much realistic. So in the realistic situation there is always a lead time between you place the order and you get that particular material. So we always try to find out the reorder point. The reorder point refers to the point at which you should place the order. So let's say the reorder point is obtained as D multiplied by L. It's not the, where D is not the annual demand. So let me put it as D dashed. So it is D dashed multiplied by L. So where D dashed is my demand per day and L is my lead time. So let's say each day I will be spending say 10 pieces, and if my lead time is 2, so I need to have a reorder point of say is equal to 20. So if I place the order at this particular point ROP, then only I will be getting my material after 2 days. If I am not placing the order at that particular point, I will be running out of my stock. Now for example, let's look at this question. So this question says the demand for iPod is say 8,000 iPods are made each year. Now, and 250 working days per year is what we are considering. So each year you have a demand of 8,000 and 250 is the working days per year. Now, and it is given that the lead time for the order is 3 working days. Now in this particular case, so the thing is, first we need to find the reorder point is D dash or small d multiplied by L. Small d is the demand per day, which is 8,000 divided by 250. 8,000 divided by 250 is 32, multiplied by 3 equal to 96 units. So (96) units is my reorder point. Now the last concept is we define. So in general, for calculating the reorder point, you need to just do D multiplied by L. But if you are given an information of safety stock, for example, if you are not sure that the daily demand is going to be a constant, if it is going to be a variable, we add something called as SS, which is called as a safety stock. So if the safety stock information is given in the question, please make sure to add that particular thing to D multiplied by L. That's it. So with this, I'm quickly summarizing what we have studied till now. The first point is inventory represents a major investment for many firms. There are different types of inventories: raw material, work in process, maintenance, repair and operating supplies, and finished goods. And we just looked at the formulae of EOQ and the reorder point. we didn't look at. So it's something like there are other methodologies for calculating the best just-in-time inventory requirements which we haven't seen yet. And normally there are multiple softwares which are available for calculating the inventory. We looked at the most elementary one called as the economic order quantity model. That's it. Thank you guys.